Well, welcome once again to another episode of Theatrum Catholicum. So it's our third video podcast. First one we did on Nefarious. The second one was Catholics or the conflict, right. This time, today, we're doing the movie Unplanned. Unplanned, I think it came out in, was it 2019?
Yes.
Around there. One of the main people, producer of Nefarious, also had a big hand in this movie as well.
Carrie Solomon, who converted to the faith.
Right. So this movie came out before he did work with Nefarious, but still very good at reviewing one of his movies again. So this movie is definitely a pro-life movie. It's basically about the story of somebody who was a director or just a leader of some sort of an actual Planned Parenthood clinic in Texas. And she really wasn't practicing her Christian faith. You find out later in the movie that she actually had an abortion, and then another time when she got pregnant and her boyfriend didn't want her to be pregnant, used the pill RU486, which kind of had an abortion at home through the taking of this pill. And then there's a time she's working there at the Planned Parenthood clinic, and she has to help and see an abortion actually taking place, and what she saw changed her life forever. She knew that she eventually just couldn't do this, couldn't work for Planned Parenthood anymore. Started working with this pro-life organization, Coalition for Life, I think so. And then just her story about Planned Parenthood just being very much, you hear a lot about them pushing that, we're here to limit abortions and things like that. But as her true life story, how she reveals abortion being pushed. And it just seemed like a lot of it was a money-making thing. She ended up having 7 or 8 more children or something after she left. She totally changed her life around. If you look on the Wikipedia page of the movie, which you can probably take with a grain of salt, but and it just has, it would mention things that, people say this is a propaganda film, and that a lot of things aren't really true, it happened, but why would Abby Johnson be lying to millions and millions of people and realizing that what she saw, I didn't see that, no. So she is really telling the truth, and it's like a 180, it's a great story. So Steve, what were some things in the movie that just wow, that's amazing. There's a lot of good quotes in this movie again.
Well, definitely, I'm very grateful that I saw the movie, because you hear all of what Planned Parenthood's agenda is, and the pro-abortion, pro-death agenda, just what it entails. But to actually see the consequences of it, to see it in practice, is very difficult and perhaps not advisable as much for some others. Right. And we live in such a culture that glorifies this. And we're being called, a special vocation of ours is to reverse this culture by working through God's grace.
So it's
quite an honor to participate in such a noble endeavor.
Right. One of the things about this movie that Planned Parenthood and other, we'll just say the liberal left, puts out there is that, if it's not convenient for you to have this baby, it's just a sample of tissue anyways, just get it, it's not a real person. But we know that God has created a soul in each and every person at the moment of conception. This is a real, true person being grown in the body of a woman that's pregnant. They talk about fetus or, baby. Which is it?
Right, fetus means offspring. It means a baby. It's funny, I remember a quote from Mother Angelica, just to paraphrase. They always call it a baby, but then when they don't want to call it a baby, they call it a fetus. Yeah. But in fact,
it's same thing. Yeah.
It's still what it is, just changing the word of it.
Right.
Doesn't impact the reality.
Right, and it says in the Bible, maybe it's Ezekiel, I'm not sure, one of those prophets, that before you were in the womb, I knew you. Being God, God knew that person was going to exist from all eternity, and that's why it's sad to have people Steve, you were looking up a statistic earlier, but it's 1 million. How many abortions have been committed now?
Yes.
Per year?
Yes, sadly. in the United States in 2023, over 1 million abortions were committed, which is at its highest in over a decade.
Right.
Since Roe v. Wade was reversed, there have actually been more abortions.
Right.
And
it's a really scary fact.
it really is. Of course, it had to be overturned in the Supreme Court. It's a big part of the fight. It allowed certain states to certainly minimize it very much, and we're thankful for that. But it also allowed certain other states that it was legal in to really just take more steps to make any kind of abortion, no matter what, very easy to obtain. So it very much strengthened pro-abortion legislation as well. And now you have the pill and all of these legal loopholes. And the culture has not changed. So really, we still are in a very much a pro-death culture. So this will require much more than a Supreme Court, just leaving it to the states, but a true cultural change in our country.
Now, it used to be in a lot of, countries ruled by Catholic leaders that abortion and contraceptives were illegal.
I believe there are a few countries where it is illegal. I believe in certain African countries and in South America where you still have a fairly fervent Catholic population. There are still some countries that are fighting to keep it illegal.
Right.
But in the vast majority of the world, especially in the West and in the communist countries in the East.
But you have where the options, it just seems like a lot of the Planned Parenthood, they will say, well, abortion is really your only option because they try to tell you don't want to bring this child to term. And then the other thing is that if you do, then you can't really raise it. So what are you going to do? Throw it to adoption? And they'll say things, oh, you don't want this child to be going from like home to home, what do they call that? It's like foster homes and like nobody ever wants, if you don't want it. So just don't have the child because you're trying to preserve, their future, happiness. It's sad that there will be children where, they'll have to go through that system. That does not give you an excuse of just aborting the child or take the pill and RE4086 or whatever. That child still has a right to life. Well, the child just, it's pure innocence. And to take that right of life to the child is just so deplorable. And if you can't have the child, raise the child yourself, there are avenues out there. One of the things that Steve brought my attention to is that there are certain fire stations where there's like a place for a mother who can't raise her baby for whatever reason and wants to do it anonymous, can drop off their baby, and that baby can then be given hopefully to a family that is able to take care of them.
You had mentioned about the foreseen quality of life that some people believe a person will definitely have. Well, who are they to play God?
That's right.
Who are they to say that they know for certain what's going to happen in a certain person's life and how they'll be impacted?
Right.
Look how often, doctors are incredible people. They're not infallible, though. Very often you hear so many stories of a disability or a disorder that a child was supposed to have that was going to very much impact their quality of life, but it didn't. And even for those who did, God has a very special purpose for them. I know so many persons like that who've taught me so many things about life. They have a true innocence and simplicity about them that can't be beat. They have a truly special vocation that needs to be valued.
Right, yeah. God can use those people to be saints. I have a good friend who has just some issues. He has a pacemaker and things, and so he has these kind of disabilities, learning disability, things like that. But God has used this person, my friend, to bring joy to so many people.
Yes.
You go into the morality, you try to say, well, is this person even capable of committing sin because, of certain things? And a lot of them, if they have so many, conditions, as long as they try to do what's best, what they think is best, the best thing to do, then that's one way they can, that's another saint for heaven. Do you agree with that, or what do you guys say?
Sure. Definitely there's a question as to whether they can commit sin, depending on how extensive
the disability.
Sure.
Yeah.
And at least mortal sin.
Right.
But certainly, in many cases, they can even receive sacraments
Sacraments,
sometimes,
communion, yeah.
receive graces from being in the life of the church, and it can be of great edification to all of those around them. So it's truly a beautiful thing. It's a great innocence that is very much ignored. People just look at, there's so many who just look at people like that, right, and just say that they're just worthless. There's countries, such as in Western Europe or Northern Europe, where they've aborted pretty much all of their Down syndrome population, for instance. It goes either Sweden or Denmark. And there are countries, so many countries who have that affliction because they cannot see what God's will is in that. They just look at it through a purely materialistic, pagan worldview.
Yeah, God can use that person, and we're not God. We can't say, no, you're not important. No, we're just going to abort you. No, because, if you have a disability, God can use those to edify so many people. And if one thing just increased, like fraternal charity, you see somebody with a disability, they have a disability, so you're gonna try to be more gracious with them, and that can teach you charity towards others just because there's somebody there. I know it has helped me for myself, so just kind of encouraging me to do that.
Yes, well, one such story in St. Louis, which made the national news and the pro-life news, was one of these baby boxes, these safe haven boxes. The first of which was installed in Missouri at the Melville Fire District. So we have over 300 of these safe haven baby boxes now in the United States.
Wow.
And the way these boxes are, yes, and there are more of them being installed continuously.
Right.
The first one installed in our state, the state of Missouri, was in Melville, Missouri, which is just south of the city of St. Louis. It's almost touching the city line. So it's very much in our region. And their fire district installed the first one of these baby boxes in our state. And given the success of it, they're right now constructing a second. They provide a way for a mother who doesn't feel that she can care for the child to anonymously place the baby in this climate-controlled box. We're not just talking about just an empty box here.
This not like a dumpster or anything.
Right, this box is perfectly tailored to fit the needs of the baby. The mother is given 30 seconds once she opens the box to place the baby inside. That also gives her time to leave to preserve her anonymity. And after the 30 seconds, alarms go off within the fire station, and the first responders rescue the baby.
So the baby is not left alone for like hours and hours, because that would be very cruel and inhumane, but
no,
it's just 30 seconds. And there's probably holes in there, right, for the child to breathe.
Right, but the box also automatically locks when the door is shut.
That's good, so no one unverified, could just like steal it and then use it for nefarious purposes.
First responders come immediately.
Right.
They care for the baby before bringing the baby to be cared for until a family can adopt.
Right. It's just so great. And I thought I read an article that maybe did that start up like in 2017 or 2018 or something?
Yes, it did, and it's quickly made headway across the country. And due to the success of the box in Melville, because there have been 2 babies now who have been brought to this safe haven box, and it's been very popular in the communities. There are now 4 safe haven boxes in the St. Louis area. And this actually came up pertinent in the Melville Fire District because there was a recent election for the district chief. And Ed Ryan, the chief, was running for his 4th term. And he faced some pretty severe opposition. And one of the points of contention was that his opponent believed that his opponent was very lukewarm about the use of baby boxes. But Ed Ryan responded, "These life-saving resources provide a safe, anonymous option for parents in crisis while ensuring that the infants receive immediate medical care." And thankfully, he won re-election. So proud to see that. Those leaders in communities, those first responders, to make a significant impact, life for life.
Right. Indiscretions are going to happen, and so even if the mother is pregnant by rape or incest. It doesn't say, oh, well, I'm embarrassed because of what happened and I want to hide it from everybody except for me and God. But just, you have to own up to it. If we talked about nefarious, very strict circumstances where, like, if you were to have a child, would the mother die? But still, it's like life, innocence. You make a mistake, gotta own up for it. Still have the baby, please, because you never know what good things God is gonna use that baby for. And leave it up to God, leave it up to God to find really good, Christian parents or whatever. Don't deny that life.
You can never counteract an evil with another evil.
Yeah.
The baby is the blessing.
So many people wish they are not able to have children. If there was a way for them to have it for adoption because you let your baby put it in a baby box or give it up for adoption, it will bring newfound joy to all those parents who aren't able to have children but could adopt.
And hopefully this kind of culture is becoming a comeback, because it used to be very commonplace. Catholic orphanages, very often that would happen back in the day. A mother might drop the baby off there and they would care very well for the baby.
Right.
This used to be incredibly commonplace. You had good adoption agencies, allowing families who truly wanted to love them, to be able to adopt them. But sadly, that's almost totally disappeared from the Western world in the last several decades after abortion and contraception have been legalized. So God willing, with these safe haven boxes and other initiatives, that we're starting to see a resurgence of that.
Yeah. Something I want to mention that's mentioned in this movie is a death of an abortion doctor named Dr. George Tiller. Had his hand in 60,000 abortions. The person that did the killing, that person is definitely not a hero. A wrong action, does not justify another wrong action. We've had, not to get all political, but we had a person being assassinated, a very conservative person.
Charlie
Kirk, right. The person that assassinated him, I guess didn't like some of his views, conservative views on things. The only exception, I would think, okay, you have monsters out there. Hitler, Saddam Hussein, the big guy, Osama bin Laden. Those people that cause mass deaths, and are terrorists, okay? There is capital punishment that is allowed. It should not be vigilante justice, even though we might like our superheroes or whatever like that, some of us, it just does not justify going out and singling, somebody out, like the Punisher or whatever, these people, these comic book people that aren't real. But we went through the proper channels with, we had a trial. We had a trial for Saddam Hussein. I'm not sure if there was a trial for Osama bin Laden. Do you remember? It's just pretty much a SEAL team that came in and just they found out where he was and he just took him out, because he was a mass terrorist. Hitler, we wanted to put Hitler on trial, I'm sure, but, he committed suicide. But you have to go through the proper channels.
I will say this. You mentioned about crimes and punishments for crimes. Very often this is a justification of abortion. Mm-hmm. I had a person running for a representative position calling me last year, and pretty left-leaning, and I asked about their justification for abortion. And they said, well, you see, there's crimes committed against women, and they're out there, and so it's unfortunate, but we have to allow it to protect against those kind of crimes. Ryan already touched on those points, but what if, since we shirk certain punishments in this country, like the death penalty, certain other punishments for crimes, what if we what if we heightened the punishments for certain of those crimes up to, and even perhaps in some cases including, the death penalty? I bet you'd see far less of those crimes in a much safer environment for everyone.
Right. I'm trying to wonder if there ever was a country that if they found out that you had an abortion, would those persons go so far as saying that, yeah, those people that committed abortions, they killed a person, they should die? Well, sometimes we have
the doctor.
Yeah, right. And but sometimes too, we have women that are pregnant. What happens if a person shoots and kills that pregnant mother, and by domino effect, also kills young born child? A lot of times they say that's 2 deaths. That's not just one. That's 2.
Traditionally, even after Roe v. Wade, would say you killed 2 persons.
Right. So why is it 2 persons if the mother and child die, but if only the child dies, that's not a person?
Because it's not convenient.
Right. And it's like
They've let pleasures and money and the goods of this world so blind them that they're willing to take out innocent life for it. It's a horrifying thing about our world today.
Yeah. We mentioned in our various podcasts that if a woman is told who's pregnant that if you have this baby, you will die, then if you are trying to do life-saving measures of the mother and unfortunately the child dies as a result of that is not a sin on that person.
Right, that's indirect.
Right. And Steve mentioned as well that there was a woman that had the baby anyways and did die.
Yes, Gianna Mulla, Saint Gianna Mulla.
Yeah. Do you know what century she was living in? Do you remember?
Oh, I think she passed away in the 1950s.
Okay.
So
wow.
quite recent.
Something for us to, or the audience and for me myself to look into. I would love to read her life.
Well, a truly selfless woman. Her daughter's actually, who was named after her daughter who was born because she was so selfless, also named Gianna, was very much devoted to telling her story, living up to that example. And she's a well-known, very holy person for that example that she provided to her family and the world. And she had a very good family life, very selfless, good Catholic woman, and she gave it for her child who was named after her.
And the love of the mother, that knowing that the sacrificial love that's there, as opposed to the inward selfishness. I hate to say that word.
I mean, of course, there's cases where the mother's very much lied to. There can be a lot of abuse, both, not only physically, but also verbally and mentally, of a lot of these pregnant women. Very often their families and many of their partners or boyfriends are losers.
Right. And I think there's a fear.
Yes,
there's a fear about, well, if I don't have an abortion, my boyfriend's going to leave me. Well, fear of how can I provide. I think there's a lot of fear, and it's hard to sometimes encourage those who are afflicted with that, who have a fear to trust in God and not have that fear. I mean,
yes,
and a lot of it is, you have to trust in God. That God will take care of you. God will take care of this baby. If you're not supposed to have it, there are these places, avenues, but it doesn't justify killing. And that must be hard and that's why there's these pro-life organizations. So there's one that's heavily mentioned in the movie. When Abby Johnson, when she decides to leave, Planned Parenthood, there's a part at the end where she's on a fence outside the clinic and pleading with a woman to not go ahead and get this abortion done. And it's not like she's going to convince every person ever. I think she helped 500 people, 560 people who were in the abortion industry to leave.
Yes.
Finally getting the truth on the matter. She's not lying,
Right. But at the same time, she recognizes the truth of what was there, and she recognizes the precarious position so many of these women are in.
Right.
So she
lived it herself.
Right.
Had an abortion, did the RE486 way. She saw one being happened. So it's not just some random Joe on the street, just doesn't know what they're talking about.
She's in a unique position to truly do it the right way, to tell them the truth patiently, gently.
Right.
Not
no judgment.
Disregarding the situations they might be in, but to empathize with them and tell them the truth and to refer them to where they can truly get help.
Right. What Steve and I are trying to do is create awareness, and if we can help save lives, if Abby Johnson create awareness to help save lives, she's going to do that. And by our words, if anybody came to us and was like, I'm not sure if I should have this baby or not, well, you bet that Steve and I are going to do our best to help tell them that an abortion is not the right answer to this problem. There will be consequences, but they don't have to be soul-killing consequences. So there is a answer that will be the best, and that life is still preserved. I did want to say one thing. I remember being in ninth grade, and as a project, we could write to our senator or representative about anything we wanted to do, and then with the hope that they would write us back, the students back. And I remember writing to Jim Talent, and I'm not sure if that's when he was governor of Missouri or if he was just a representative, but I remember writing to Jim Talent that I had heard that unfortunately there was at the time, and I think still going on, a selling of aborted baby parts to black market groups and things like that, and how horrible that was, that people would take, not only that abortion was committed, but then they would sell these things like they were just, inanimate objects, just like, it's just a leaf, you want to, feel bad if you just sold this leaf, but that same thing, these are worthless things. And I think some of that, and he was just telling me how horrible that was going, $10,000 for like baby hearts or whatever.
Yeah, they had a whole room dedicated to that purpose in the movie. The
That's
POC
right. Yeah, and there was like a barrel that was being carted out. The barrel had the baby parts in it, and it was just a sad thing. Do you remember when George W. Bush was president?
Yes.
And you remember there was one of the big things, the kind of controversy with the president is the whole thing about stem cells.
Right.
And stem cell research, and so they were trying to say that, we can take aborted baby parts and take stem cells from that to help to cure diseases. And it's just like, this is so, and even though there was a lot of things I liked about George W. Bush, that was one thing that I did not like, that he was willing to continue this kind of research, use these parts and it's just like, so see, if I have an abortion, therefore the parts can use stem cells to cure this thing, isn't that a great thing? And it's like, doing something, an evil from an evil, it's just, the ends do not justify the means. Oh great, we want to cure diseases? Yes, all for that. But having an evil action and then use that for a good purpose, we can't do that.
That's true.
We
Absolutely.
can't do that as Catholics. Something you want to mention about maybe this movie, parts you liked, parts you didn't?
I think the movie definitely, it's certainly a very Christian movie made by people with a lot of faith, definitely with a love for the fight for the unborn, a love for life, and they were very honest about what happens in Planned Parenthood and in this abortion culture we live in. They were honest about the consequences of it. They were honest about how, when put into practice, what things take place, what terrifying things take place. And it's very hard to see, much less know of. I'm profoundly grateful that I did see it, though, because it allows me to have truly strengthened convictions myself. It's good to encounter that in some way on your own sometimes.
Right.
And to really realize, because we're social beings, we know things through our senses. Sometimes if you just hear about it kind of in passing, it becomes kind of theoretical to you a bit at times.
Right.
That's just a human tendency.
Right.
But your convictions are truly strengthened when you not just know that you should fight, that you have to fight for something, but how, why you should.
Right.
So it was excellently well done.
You hear about abortion, it's awful, but then kind of like, as much as they can show in an actual movie, I felt like they did a great job showing things, and they showed things as portrayed by Abby in her book. She wrote autobiography about her experiences and things like that. So they showed as much as they could show, and it just kind of like puts it, oh wow. There was some parts in this movie like, man, this is really hard to watch, like almost cuts you to the eyes. There's blood in certain elements, we'll just say like that, happening. I think it kind of encourages our resolve even further, and it just justifies it. Recommendation for this movie: this will have to be on your own personal scale, whether or not you would want your child to see this movie. I personally recommend it be at least 18 to watch this movie. Otherwise, I think even this movie, you have to be definitely on your guard more so about than you were if you had your child watch Nefarious. I think this one definitely is 18. The R rating definitely, is R for a reason. It's not because of language. It's for, disturbing images, I would say, but true, violent.
Yes, I would concur with what you just said. I would recommend watching it with a loved one, or at least a friend. I think that would be good
That's a good idea.
see it together, to have that kind of shared experience, because it is a significant experience. It's always good to kind of have someone there for you too.
Right.
If with all the very upsetting scenes, the things that are said,
Right.
and in case you need to look away and stuff, keep that in mind. So.
Right.
Yes, but overall, I would absolutely recommend. We do need to know about these things. How much we see them is based on prudence, but we have to know what we're fighting. We have to know what we love, otherwise we're not
We have to know
to love it.
Yeah, very good. And we have to know why we are fighting for what we're fighting. Not just like, oh, well, somebody told me that abortion was bad, but I don't know anything about it. You have to really, it's good to educate yourself. One last thing I want to mention, I have not seen it, but I think you might be able to buy it from Ignatius Press or some other, but there is a video recording, I think it was done in the 70s or 80s somehow, of what a unborn child is going through during an abortion, and I'm not sure if it's third trimester or not, or just partial birth, but it's called Silent Scream. Silent Scream. That one, and I have not seen it. Again, one of those things that you don't want your 14-year-old to be stumbling upon, but and I have not seen it myself, what I've heard is hard to watch, and you feel so bad for each and every one of these babies, what they're going through. They feel pain, they feel suffering, and I think a lot of organizations like Planned Parenthood would say, oh no, they don't feel a thing, they don't hurt. But even Abby Johnson, when she saw the abortion happening, with the ultrasound gel, and then you could just see that you see the baby inside feeling pain. And partial birth abortion, like right when they're, all right, this baby can be born, or should we kill it? And it's just so horrible. Partial birth abortion, really an evil. We got to stand up for what's right, and I know this is probably a very uncomfortable video to maybe listener here, hopefully not, but any final words, Steve?
Well, to always persevere for what's right, to not allow our senses or our emotions or the world at large, the devil, to cloud our judgment, to live in accordance with the will of God and the Catholic Church in order to see clearly in these matters, and to continue fighting no matter what the world or different situations, or even maybe sometimes those in the church, as we covered in our last video. No matter what challenges we face, we have to always go forward with the help of God's grace, and to never stop praying too.
Right. Stay close with the rosary.
Yes, those who persevere in prayer and devotion to Our Lady will never be lost, and they'll do so much good in the world, the good that God wants them to do through His divine grace, His most beautiful gift.
Right. If you happen to be someone where you've been affected by miscarriages and things, I do want to say that my grandma, Desiree, God rest her soul, she had at least 3 miscarriages, but her parish priest gave her a relic of Saint Gerard Majella and said, pin this on you. And she pinned it on her when she got pregnant again, and my dad was born because of that, because Our Lady and also the relic of Saint Gerard Majella, I really believe that really did help. If you are having trouble, there are avenues out there, and maybe you need to do a novena to Saint Gerard Majella, or you find a relic somewhere.
That's absolutely magnificent, Bud. That's the first time I knew that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So very much, pro-life there.
Yes.
And if God decides, however many times you try, and you're not supposed to have children, then we have to accept that and what God wants for our life. God's in control. Well, thank you very much. Oh, and if you're having trouble trying to find our other 2 podcasts, I'm going to try to do some certain things to get the sabermetrics up. But if you're trying to find the first podcast, if you search podcast number 1, Nefarious, you will get our direct line. It will be like the second or third or first video shown. If you're trying to find our one on the conflict, if you do podcast number 2, the conflict, that also should show up really fast. I will try to make it so that this one, podcast 3, probably unplanned, probably show up until I can change some of the things. So if you're having trouble. Anyways, thank you for your time. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Always a pleasure.
Always pleasure. We'll try to do another one next month. So wait and see what that one will be. So all right, take care. God bless.
God bless.
Goodbye.